It's been over a month since I've last talked about Old Beastie, and I honestly think that this video is going to be the last one I do.
I know what kind of man you are.
Well guys, it's about to get messy. Today we are diving back into the world of the MrBeast drama with what might be the biggest drama bomb that has dropped thus far. Everything's fallen apart, people. Now, if you've been following this MrBeast drama whatsoever, then you likely already know what I'm talking about. If you don't, then I'm not really sure how this video is going to go for you. At this point, if the MrBeast drama was a movie series, we'd be on like the 4th or 5th one. We've gotten to the point where everybody's been recast. The writers have completely forgotten the story of the first movie. This is like the Jason Goes to Manhattan equivalent of the MrBeast situation. Basically, what's going on is that a few days ago, a YouTuber named Soggy Cereal released a video that discredits, disproves, or otherwise just hurts the credibility of just about every single claim that Dogpack 404 has made in regards to MrBeast. Or at least that's what the video is intended to do. Now, does it do that? I think in a lot of cases, yeah, exceedingly well, but in some cases, maybe not as much as some people are letting on. Now, if you haven't seen the Dogpack 404 videos, if you're not caught up with the MrBeast drama, this video is probably not going to be one that catches you up. I'm not saying you need to know everything, and even if you haven't seen anything on the MrBeast drama, watching this video will probably fill you in on a lot of it, but I'm not going to be going super in-depth into context like I normally would, because this video is going to be going through every single thing that Soggy Cereal said in that video. Now, some of it's just going to be 30 or 45 seconds long, things that I don't think need a whole lot of additional commentary, but for other things, I'll go into yap mode, and if I gave context for every single thing that's said during an hour-and-a-half long video, this video would be 3 hours long. Don't really want to do that, so I won't. We're pretty deep into the MrBeast stuff at this point. I figure most of you guys will have the basics at this point if you're watching this video, so that's the assumption I'm going to be working under. Now, I want to say a few things before I get into the video itself. One is sort of a disclaimer, which is I'm in contact with both of these guys. I've talked to Dogpack 404, I've talked to Soggy Cereal, and I do not have anything personal against these guys. I think they're both good dudes. They've both entertained me pestering them with questions, and personally, I think they are both in pretty similar situations. They're both seemingly trying to do what they think is right, trying to spread information about something that they think is important for other people to hear about, and that situation happens to be one full of he said, she said, and information that is damn near impossible to verify. However, knowing that, both of these guys still decided to come to the internet with that information and spread it as fact. Like I've mentioned in my past MrBeast videos, we've sort of crossed the barrier of normal internet drama at this point. The things that are being said are life-altering, life-damaging things here, and if you're gonna make these claims, you better be damn sure that what you're saying is true, and if it's not, you need to be ready to face the music. And while I don't think that either of these guys took the missteps that they may have taken on purpose, I don't necessarily think they were trying to be malicious, they still took them, and that needs to be addressed. Now, with that out of the way, I want to give my general thoughts on this video and what it's done. I guess you could consider this as sort of my thesis statement, and I'll be going through this video to try and back it up. I think this video has done a lot to not only help begin to clear MrBeast's name, but also to discredit Dogpack 404. There is a lot in this video that seems to prove that Dogpack 404, in his 3 videos exposing MrBeast, either left out information purposefully, did not find pertinent information on certain claims that he was making, or was just knowingly lying, or bending the truth to a pretty considerable degree. Now, this does not apply to everything that Dogpack has said, and we'll get to that later, but if you lie about one thing, everything else that you've said comes into question, and that effect only grows as the more lies that you have told are discovered. Now, that is where I think a lot of people's thoughts on this video are ending. They see this as nothing more than Dogpack is ruined, nothing he said can be trusted, MrBeast is cleared now, and I think that is an insane way to look at this video. I think right now is a great time for us all to really try and be aware of our media literacy, because I will admit that when all this stuff came out, I was like, yeah, okay, well, this seems like it's probably true. The sources seem credible enough. The research looks extensive. I was convinced that the claims made against MrBeast by Dogpack 404 were true, and that's still the case for some of them, but no longer all of them, which is why I also want to bring attention to the fact that by the end of this video, Soggy Cereal will have done some of the stuff that he criticized Dogpack 404 for, the same things that he said made Dogpack 404 an incredible source. source. There are moments in this video where Soggy Cereal will try and convince you of something using the same methods that Dogpack404 used in his original videos. So I think it's important that going forward we need to recognize that just because somebody on the internet says it's true does not mean it's true. That is one of the cardinal rules of the internet that a lot of people have seemed to have forgotten. I think it's also very important that we try and inject some nuance into this discussion. Black and white statements are very popular on the internet these days. They are basically the default for most people. Nuance is dead. You can come out of this video thinking that Dogpack404 was in fact a disgruntled employee, like a lot of people were accusing him of being, and still think that a lot of the things that he did have evidence for are true. You can come out of this video acknowledging that Soggy Cereal debunked a lot of the stuff that Dogpack404 said, while also acknowledging that that does not mean that everything he tried to debunk is by default debunked just because he was successful on some of them, when his attempt to disprove other things did not go as well. You can be convinced that MrBeast is not guilty of doing some of the things that he may have been accused of in the past, while acknowledging that being proven innocent on one thing does not automatically prove you innocent on every single thing you're being accused of. There's just a lot of missing nuance in this discussion, I think, and I feel like that's one of the biggest issues we're facing when it comes to this problem. Everybody wants there to be one right answer, and with something as big as this, there's just not gonna be, okay? But my god, I've already spent 6 minutes just setting the foundation up for this video, and we only have an hour and a half of footage to go through today, so let's not waste any more time. Let's begin. Please subscribe.
Yes.
You're pushing back on everything that we're saying. So what
Well, because you're trying to fire me, and I want to work at this company.
I'm the CEO of this company. If I'm talking, don't interrupt.
And I've been trying to get to this point of working on MrBeast for a long time. Can I please have a second chance?
You were the manager of Dawson, or Dogpack404.
I was the manager of Dogpack404 for a time being.
If you had to describe the working conditions when Dawson was working with you in ideation with one word, what word would it be?
I would say it was depressing.
The war crime stuff, that was a joke. Why did you make that joke?
Actively right now, by the videos that Dawson is making, he is actively hurting the philanthropy that is helping thousands and millions of them.
Okay, so right off the bat, I really don't like the way this video starts off. First of all, leaking this audio of him getting fired seems like kind of a weird thing to do. I really question how this was sourced and why it got leaked. A reputable and moral company would not leak the audio of an employee being fired, especially not to make them look better in the midst of a controversy. Also, asking people who probably don't like him because of the videos he's made to describe him seems pretty unfair, and that's something that Soggy's gonna give Dogpack shit for later. Just a pretty manipulative intro, I think, which again, manipulating his audience is something that Soggy Cereal attacks Dogpack for doing.
Hey my bowl of cereal, as most of you have probably guessed by now, this video won't just be about this alleged fraudulent and manipulative asshole, it'll also be about this confirmed fraudulent and manipulative asshole.
Okay, so this video is not going to be going through every single second like it might appear it is right now, and it's also not going to be fully in defense of Dogpack. But again, I don't really like the way this is framed, saying that MrBeast is only an alleged manipulative asshole. Like nothing anybody said about him has been confirmed. That's just not a fair way to present this. Multiple allegations against MrBeast have been confirmed, implying that everything is still up in the air is not very fair.
But that doesn't mean that just because this spiteful, vengeful ghoul accuses MrBeast of intentionally hiring a registered sex offender, that he actually did. Yeah, let's talk about the lie spun by Dogpack and Jake Weddle, that MrBeast knowingly hired a registered sex offender and while working at the company would refer to him by covert codename Delaware because of the crimes he committed there, and as a result is not allowed to go back into the state of Delaware, and that MrBeast higher-ups are using that nickname because they enjoy messed up insider jokes like that.
Okay, so this whole Delaware situation is one of the most important things I want to talk about today. It's one of the things I'm going to go the most in depth on because I feel like this whole situation is getting really foggy and neither side is representing it very well.
The real story is much more boring. See, according to a anonymous MrBeast employee, Dustin Harris, who has been working at MrBeast for about 6 years and went rogue because he couldn't stand Jimmy not responding to all of the misinformation being spread about not just Jimmy or the MrBeast company, but also about his own friends and colleagues. Well, he explained that Delaware was once a store manager at Jimmy's local Best Buy, which, for the people who don't know, Best Buy is a $20 billion valued electronics retailer company with stores all over the US. I mean that when Jimmy was 19, 2019 and first started blowing up on YouTube, Jimmy realized he needed employees to improve his content. So, as a dumbass, impulsive 19-year-old randomly thrown into fame, he went to his local Best Buy and asked its employees if they wanted to work for it. Naively thinking that a multi-billion-dollar company would have at least made sure to not hire criminals and especially to not hire a registered sex offender as store manager, 19-year-old MrBeast didn't do background checks. Was that stupid? Yes. Is Delaware a piece of shit? Yes. Should Jimmy take responsibility for making that mistake? Yes. But it wasn't this fucked up master plan by Jimmy to intentionally hire an RSO. It was a dumb mistake by an inexperienced adolescent starting up a business.
Okay, so up until this point, I think that this context is super important. The fact that it really does seem like MrBeast kind of accidentally found Delaware and that's how he ended up hiring him really changes a lot. It would make sense that when MrBeast's channel was still pretty small, he was just hiring people randomly, he wasn't doing all the things he probably should have done, like run a background check, and that's how Delaware ended up on the team. However, I don't know if it's important anymore when you question the real problem with the whole Delaware situation, and that's the question of why was he kept on after everything was discovered. And sure, you can say it's because second chances are important, or people deserve to be able to turn their life around, and I guess that would be fine in most circumstances, but when you start to see a pattern at the MrBeast company, namely with the whole Ava Chris Tyson and LaKoya Hill stuff, like I've said many times before, you gotta start questioning, is it about second chances, or is it about just not giving a shit when people do stuff like that? Call me old-fashioned, but if I'm running a company and I find out that you have past charges relating to sexually assaulting somebody between the ages of 1 and 11, your ass is fired. Now earlier I said up until this point, I said I thought that everything Soggy Cereal had added to this was pretty important. I said that because after this point he does something that I think is really misleading, and it's not fair to include.
You know that he knew, and because he'll be in videos, and whenever he's wearing a mask. And whenever he's wearing a mask. He's wearing a mask.
Okay, so this, I think, is a really, really strange thing to include, because he just got done saying that there was no way they could have known he was an RSO as they hired him, so it would make sense that they didn't feel the need to hide his face in the first videos he's in. However, it is documented that they did start hiding his face once they found out. Or at the very least, they started hiding his face for some reason. Jake the Viking, Delaware's brother-in-law, claims that Jimmy and his mother knew that he was an RSO, and that the reason he wore the mask in the straitjacket video was because of his charges. Now real quick before I show you what Soggy Cereal has to say about that, I wanted to address the audio recording that Dogpack included in his video where he recorded a MrBeast employee named Garrett. He was apparently not informed that he was being recorded, and they used that audio anyway. They barely tried to hide who it was, all the while this guy is just kind of talking about water cooler talk, rumors, shit that they can't confirm, and it messed up his personal life, which is not a cool thing to do. No excuses there.
What about Jake the Viking's tweet about Jimmy's mom literally allowing her then barely of age son to knowingly be in contact with and hire a pedophile? First of all, have you thought about just how fucking absurd that sounds? And second, Jake the Viking is a shitty person and untrustworthy. Even Dogpack's friends agree on that.
Viking is not a good guy, and that's just an opinion based on his actions in my eyeballs.
Okay, so I feel like this is a really dumb thing to include in a video where we're talking about having all the facts, doing your research, all that stuff. It doesn't matter if you don't like a person. It doesn't matter if you think they're untrustworthy. That does not mean you just get to dismiss whatever they say. Again, this is kind of the problem with trying to investigate something like this. Everything about this situation is he said, she said. Do we trust Justin? Do we trust Jake Weddle? Do we trust Jake the Viking? Like, this entire situation is full of people saying, look, this guy has this motive, we shouldn't trust him, and then trying to prove that by quoting people who have the opposite motive. If you think that this Dustin guy, a high-ranking employee of the MrBeast team, is the most trustworthy person to listen to when it comes to defending the MrBeast company, then you have no right whatsoever to say, oh, well, Dogpack's a disgruntled employee, he can't be trusted. So I find a lot of this kind of hypocritical because his entire video is discrediting Dogpack because he's just a disgruntled employee who's mad at MrBeast, but then, at the same time, basically all of the interviews, all the people he fact-checks this stuff with, are people who are on good terms with MrBeast, who are getting their paychecks from MrBeast. However, when a relatively neutral party in this situation, the Jake the Viking guy, who doesn't like Dogpack and doesn't work for MrBeast anymore, says, hey, this is what happened, suddenly, he's untrustworthy. It's a two-way street. You have to have credible sources on both sides, not just the one that proves your point. point. Now, this is one of the things that I actually did bring up with Soggy Cereal, just because I thought it was kind of unfair, and he seemed to agree that it might have not been fair to just immediately write off Jake like this, but he did have his reasons for not believing that Jake is a reliable source. Now, after this, they talk about the whole war crimes thing, which I didn't even know was that big of a point of discussion, but apparently it is, where Jake Weddle is recalling how Dustin said that when they wouldn't turn the lights off in the challenge, that's a war crime. And I feel like this is one of the many times during this video that Soggy's gonna get a bit caught up in the semantics of everything. My question, and the thing I'm not really understanding, is why does it matter whether or not Dustin meant it as a joke or not? I think the real issue here, the thing to focus on, is that for some reason during this challenge, MrBeast didn't want the lights turned off while a person was trying to sleep. I think that's the issue. I know that there were some people saying like, oh my god, MrBeast is a lunatic, he's committing war crimes, but I mean, those people are just fucking stupid. Obviously, MrBeast is not committing a war crime. He's not in a war. But I feel like everybody who's talking about this is missing the point, right? Sure, you can defend MrBeast by saying that he didn't commit a war crime, I guess. What's the defense for wanting the lights on while a guy's trying to sleep? I will say one thing, however, I do think it was probably not the best for Dogpack to edit in the definition of sleep deprivation. That really makes it seem like he was not taking it as a joke, and he was actually kind of accusing MrBeast of committing a war crime. That, I will admit, probably shouldn't have been in the video. Now, those two things, especially the whole Delaware situation, those are the things in this video that I have the strongest opinions against Soggy Cereal on. From this point forward, we're probably going to be speedrunning this just a little bit, because a lot of the times there just won't be that much for me to add, because Soggy Cereal kind of does it all. He debunks a ton that Dogpack has said with evidence that is not really refutable in any way. So for the most part, not the entire rest of the video, but a lot of it will be me just going through what exactly is disproven and what that might mean. I'm not going to be going through how everything was debunked. I'm not going to be going through all the evidence, because if you want that, you should just go watch his video. You should go watch it anyways, because it's very well made and it probably took a fuck ton of time to make, and I don't want to detract from that. Normally, I wouldn't go through an entire video of this length, but since I've talked so much about what Dogpack has said in the past, and I've helped spread it, it's only fair that I talk about what has been disproven within the information that I've spread. So, with that being said, that's what we'll do now, starting with the illegal lotteries. And it seems like those illegal lotteries that Dogpack talked about may have not been nearly as illegal as implied. Upon doing a little bit more digging, it seems like MrBeast was in fact doing the giveaways legally, and that all the disclaimers that MrBeast would have needed to give to make it legal were given. Following that, he talks about how Dogpack says that he thinks that things, quote, slip through the cracks intentionally when it comes to stuff like giving things away or doing things for fans. And the example he gave of people being guaranteed free dog food for life ended up apparently being a communication issue, and they all ended up getting their free dog food. Now, it's really easy to say that, oh, it's just a communication issue, things went to the spam folder of their email, which is what they said. Here, we'll make it right now once you've been called out for it. Or it could have actually just been a communication issue. With stuff like this, if they ended up making it right, and they eventually did what they said they were going to do, you've kind of got to take their word. Then Soggy talks about Dogpack comparing the Hershey's bar to the Feastables bar, and I think there is some confusion here on both sides. I'll show you the clip.
Well, the new Feastables formula has more sugar and calories than Hershey's.
MrBeast changed the formula again to where it has mostly the same ingredients as Hershey's and even more sugar and more calories per bar.
Well, that'd be pretty messed up after MrBeast actively advertised his chocolate to be healthier than Hershey's. Luckily, it's just another lie. Dogpack is being deceitful here, because he's comparing a single serving sized 43 grams Hershey's bar to a 2 serving sized 60 grams Feastables bar, instead of comparing it to a 1 serving sized 35 grams Feastables bar.
Okay, so I don't actually think that Dogpack is comparing the Hershey's bar to the Feastables bar here, at least not when he's talking about sugar and calories, because if you remember, the whole drama with these chocolate bars is that MrBeast said that these were going to be the most healthy chocolate bars ever, that there's only going to be so many ingredients, and then down the line he reformulated the recipe to basically have all the same stuff that a Hershey bar does. I think that's why he has the ingredients up on this board. When he says that it has more sugar and calories, I think he's talking about the new Feastables bar compared to the old one. If you actually listen to what he says, that's kind of what it sounds like. He is wrong about the calories though. There is more sugar, but there's not more calories. So not really sure what happened here, but this is one of the more low stake items in this video, so not sure how important that really is. After this, he talks about how a lot of the times when Dogpack said that something was CGI, it actually wasn't. Who's telling the truth? I don't know. There are times where Soggy Cereal does this thing where he basically basically just says something is true and doesn't really expand upon it. For example, when he's talking about this car that was changed from red to blue to make an easy visual distinction for the viewers, he addresses how Dogpack said a certain car was digitally lifted, and the way he addresses it is this.
This car is digitally lifted.
This car isn't digitally lifted, however they did change the original red coloring to blue to make a visual distinction between the first rocket car they launched and failed, which was red.
So at this point, we've got two guys who have both pointed at a car. One said this car was digitally lifted, the other one said no it wasn't, and neither of them defended why they thought that was. And there's a lot of that in this video. Should Soggy Cereal get away with it because Dogpack got away with it? Ideally, no, but people are gonna pick the side they believe anyways, and start believing stuff like this just because the person they like said it, even though nobody has proven anything about this car. Now after this, he goes into the whole work chat video that Dogpack made with Rosanna Panzino. You guys already know my thoughts about this. I made a whole video about that video. I thought it was absolutely fucking insane that they actually made that video, that they go through this work chat that they allegedly think has CP in it as some sort of like weird reaction video. Also, Rosanna putting what she thought was CP in the thumbnail. I'm already on record saying that entire video is inexcusable, but during this, Soggy seems to sort of defend this idea that there wouldn't have been a way for MrBeast to know of what Ava Chris Tyson actually was into, and I don't understand how anybody pushes that idea at this point. The picture that Ava sent of Ivanka Trump was part of a Twitter thread talking about famous diddlers, Epsteins, and the such, and her sending this picture and the Twitter thread sparked a conversation where they started to talk about Epstein and condemn that kind of behavior. Soggy Cereal says that if he had a similar conversation with one of his friends, where one of his friends condemned these people and their actions, then he would assume that they themselves are not a person like that. I can't say the P word on YouTube, you know what I'm saying. And he uses that to kind of try and debunk how Dogpack was saying based off these chats, MrBeast knew what Ava was into.
I don't think context matters here on Ava Tyson's side. I still think this is fucking disgusting. However, I do think context matters for the people perceiving Ava Chris Tyson's messages. I'm sorry, but if I'd see my friend actively ranting about pedophiles and bashing them, I'd actively be convinced to not think they're a pedophile when they send degenerate memes like this. I just cringe on the inside while thinking that they have a degenerate sense of Zoomer humor.
And sure, this conversation alone, I guess I could kind of see what he means, but this was not the only conversation that was had. This was not the only time they talked about this subject, so him condemning it once really doesn't mean a whole lot. I mean, we can't just ignore all the Twitter interactions that MrBeast had with Ava involving all the Shadman art. We can't ignore the fact of that poster that Ava had on her wall that MrBeast knew about. There were even references of this behavior from Ava in this chat. Soggy tries to explain part of that away here, and it might honestly be the worst argument in the entire video.
He also tried dragging the famous anime Higehiro and its fandom through the mud by saying it's about a 26-year-old having a romantic relationship with a minor.
Let's see if Jimmy knew about Ava's concerning behavior. June of 2021, he sends a message of an anime called Higehiro. It says, I bet Chris would love this show. Why?
What's this show about?
Well, it's interesting that you ask, because this show is about a romantic relationship between a 26-year-old salaryman and a 17-year-old high school runaway.
So Jimmy in the chats is saying, I bet Chris would love this show because it's right up her alley.
Why do you think Chris would love that show, Jimmy?
And MrBeast saying Ava would love this? Even though the anime is about the exact opposite.
He posted that one thing about the anime with the like a doll getting into a relationship with a.
That's okay. Okay, here's the thing. That's a lie. That is such a bullshit lie. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
He literally said.
Do we have the time? No. He literally
said, I think Chris would like this. Why would he say that though?
No, the context of that anime, that show is about a 26-year-old guy. Okay, he takes in this runaway girl who is selling herself to prostitution. She's like 17 or whatever, 16. I don't remember. She's 17, 16. She's selling her body because she ran away from home because some other shit happened. And I remember this because my friend tried showing this to me and I'm like, what the fuck is this? It turned out it was actually a very wholesome show about this dude kind of teaching her like how to get through like all this trauma that she had in her life. There was never any romantic intentions there. Sure, if you watch the anime in the first episode, the girl was coming on to him, but the guy rejected her and saw her as a daughter. That whole show, he had a whole nother love interest in that show this whole time. This was never about the dude getting into a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old.
You guys actively pissed off the entire anime side of Twitter with this one. So this again more so proves Jimmy didn't know.
Okay, so this is another case where I don't think the person making the argument really understands what they're arguing against. I went on Crunchyroll and I read the description of this anime that MrBeast sent to this chat. I'll read it for you now since you can't make it out on screen. On his way home from drinking his sorrows away after being rejected by his crush, the 26-year-old salaryman Yoshida finds a high school girl named Sayu sitting on the side of the road. Yoshida is completely drunk out of his mind and ends up letting Sayu stay at his place. Not having the heart to put Sayu out on the street since she ran away from home, Yoshida allows her to stay at his place, and so begin the awkward, irritable, and slightly heartwarming relationship between a runaway high school girl and a salaryman living together. Okie dokie. That's the description MrBeast read. He screenshotted it and then sent it to a group chat with a bunch of other people and said, I bet Chris would love this show. Not, hey Chris, have you heard of this? I think you'd like it. I bet Chris would love this show. Are we really gonna sit here and pretend like this is just an innocent show recommendation? If I'm recommending a show to somebody that I think they would actually like, I'm not gonna walk up to them and talk to them in the third person. So why does MrBeast do that here? Because this is a joke for the group chat, not a recommendation for Chris. Because the other people in the group chat probably realize why MrBeast is saying, I bet Chris would love this show. Who here, by show of hands, thinks that MrBeast has seen this anime? Okay, you can put your hands down. Who here thinks that MrBeast saw this and, like the guy ranting in this video says himself, thought it was kinda weird sounding, and then thinks, okay, I know who likes those kinds of stories. It doesn't matter what the anime is actually about, it matters what MrBeast thought it was about. There's no way that MrBeast knew that this was just a wholesome anime, because you can just make out what that orange button says and it's start watching, not resume, he hadn't been watching it. MrBeast probably saw a screenshot of this somewhere, thought it was weird, and was like, you know who likes stuff about underage girls? Ava. Do not try and trick yourself into thinking that MrBeast knew this anime was wholesome. Come on. Anyways, after this, Soggy starts talking about Dogpack's claim that the 58 guy in the age video never winked, which was disproven because that guy came out and said he did. Then he talked about how Dogpack said that Mark Bates was led on by MrBeast and was lied to by MrBeast, and Soggy shows how Dogpack left out some pretty crucial information involving that, including cutting clips in a way to make it seem like Mark is saying something that he really wasn't. Also the fact that Mark was apparently put on a salary so he wouldn't run out of money. For context, this was a guy who was given $1 million from MrBeast. After this, he claims that Dogpack lied about Mac, saying that he lives in a mansion and had all this money when in reality he didn't have a house, and the mansion that Dogpack was referring to was actually owned by a different employee at MrBeast. Following this, he addresses a tweet made by Dogpack insinuating that Feastables are made through child slavery, in which he talks about the companies that MrBeast is working with to produce this chocolate, and how their main mission statement is to reduce exploitation. Now honestly, this is the first time I'm hearing about this. I didn't even know people were accusing MrBeast of using child slavery, so I'm not going to go too far into that one because I don't have all the info. After this, he talks about what is likely Dogpack's biggest blunder, which is making a video accusing the wrong James Warren of animal abuse and domestic violence. Obviously, that's inexcusable. I don't feel like I really need to go into too much depth there. Jumping the gun on certain things can be excused. I mean, you can understand it in certain cases. Making pretty much baseless accusations against somebody saying that they abuse their partner and then publishing it in front of millions of people is not one of those things. The fact that that video stayed up so long, tying a man's face to another man's crimes, is insane. It's inexcusable. Probably the worst thing that Dogpack has done. Couple that with the fact that all Dogpack really did to remedy the situation was a Twitter post. I mean, that's just fucking insane. You just don't get to tell millions of people that someone is an abuser of multiple forms and then make it go away with a Twitter post. Bare minimum, you delete that video, make a video explaining the situation, and apologize to that person personally. That is life-ruining shit. The recklessness that shows, I don't think Dogpack will ever be able to escape that. Now after this, he starts to talk about Lokoya Hill, and we're going to talk a lot more about Lokoya towards the end of this video once he gets to the interviews, but he makes a pretty convincing argument that it seems like Dogpack might just actually be a disgruntled employee, considering that Lokoya was the one who fired him, and that two of the other people that he called out in this video directly or indirectly, Kara and his manager Hoodie, were placed in the video for seemingly no reason, and coincidentally those were the two other people in the room with him when he was fired. However, a convincing argument is not evidence, and I still think it's very questionable that he was able to obtain this audio. There's really really no way you can spin it. There's no moral way that this was leaked. This was done maliciously to hurt Dogpack's credibility. Also, and we'll talk more about this later, the fact that Soggy was able to get all this info and secure all these interviews, seemingly because the people involved knew that he was making a video against Dogpack, while everybody else who's trying to get in touch with these people and get more information aren't really able to do that in the same capacity. Of course, a lot of people have brought up how CoffeeZilla was not able to get any sort of interviews whatsoever. It's all a little strange. Following this, he talks about the rocket that was supposed to take the hard drive to the moon, containing a bunch of fans' pictures and memes and whatever. He shows that once the mission was unsuccessful, people were offered refunds, and that a second trip might be in the works. Then he brings up something that I did not know about until this video, and that's the fact that Dogpack basically only worked at MrBeast for 3 weeks.
But Soggy, what about the insider knowledge he has from working there?
In my opinion, as somebody who works for MrBeast,
it has been proven time and time again, he only worked there for 20 workdays.
Which I think is an insane thing for Dogpack to leave out. This is me calling out my own media illiteracy. With the way Dogpack was talking, I just assumed he worked there for like, I don't know, at least 6 months. Like he had an actual employment there. Working 3 weeks somewhere, I mean, you're not gonna learn anything. You might pick up a few small things, but you're still an outsider at a company. You're not gonna know the nitty-gritty shit that you're acting like you do. Working 3 weeks somewhere, I mean, come on. You basically didn't even work there. After this, he starts addressing a lot of the claims that Dogpack made, saying that MrBeast videos are rigged. For example, the 100 Boys versus 100 Girls one. Dogpack claimed that they never choose random subscribers, that the contestants are always employees or friends or family. And Soggy shows some people from the videos who have been confirmed not to be either of those things. He also explains why in that video so many people that were part of the MrBeast company were contestants, and that was due to some issues with COVID testing and a lot of people testing positive. After that, he talks about the claims that Dogpack made regarding the video where somebody has 10 minutes to escape a room, and Soggy shows that he has proof that Dogpack was on that set, so basically anything that Dogpack said about that was him breaking his NDA. He then shows some text from Dustin showing that it's not really rigged, but more so a lot of the things that Dogpack was talking about were for safety regulations. Same thing with the Stranded at Sea video. Apparently, it wasn't staged, but they did have to leave the raft momentarily to avoid a lightning storm, and Soggy uses this to kind of go against Dogpack's claim that the company does not care about safety. Now, in these specific examples, sure, but I feel like we're kind of cherry picking there. Never in this video is anything about the Beast games mentioned, which I feel like is a crazy thing to leave out. I know that that wasn't like technically Dogpack's thing, that was more of Rosanna Pansino, but to sit here and say the MrBeast company really cares about safety, while there's no way Soggy did not know about all the Beast games drama, I feel like that's a bit disingenuous. Not mentioning the Beast games when you're talking about safety kinda hurts the credibility of all this. However, after this, more explanations about how the illegal lotteries weren't actually illegal are provided. Nothing to really add there, I don't think. They just weren't illegal. The things that Dogpack said made them illegal were just simply not happening. Also, there were a few videos that Dogpack said never happened that were promised to be made with winners of these giveaways, and he was right, they never were made, apparently due to COVID restrictions, but all of the winners were compensated more than they probably would have been if the videos were made. Now, this is the point in the video where the dissection of Dogpack's claims sort of end. This is where he starts showing the interviews with the MrBeast employees. Now, I'm not really going to be showing much of these interviews or talking about them too much for one of two reasons, just depending on the interview. One, because a lot of the interviews is just addressing stuff we've already talked about, or two, it's talking about Dogpack's character, and like I can't speak on the guy's character. Plus, I don't know how reliable of a source these people are, just as it might not be the best idea to blindly listen to a guy who was fired by a company talk about that company. It's also probably not the best idea to listen to a person talk about another person who's been really hurting the public image of the company they work at. I think there's a lot of conflict of interest there, and I think that Dogpack should have the right to defend himself against what these people have said about him, so I'll talk about all that later if the time comes. Now, before we get to the one interview I do want to look at, I do want to talk about what I think a lot of people are questioning right now, and that's how Soggy got these interviews to begin with. I'm not going to sit here and say that I think that Soggy is being like a shill for MrBeast. I know that's kind of the popular opinion right now, but I just don't think that's the case. I do think the people that he's been in contact with, these employees at MrBeast, probably started to figure out pretty quickly based off the questioning and everything that he was making a video that would paint the MrBeast company in a positive light, so they likely did want to help that, so they may have been a bit more cooperative than they would have with somebody making a negative video, but I don't know if that's like really Soggy Cereal's fault. I also don't think he's being paid for this. No offense to Soggy, I think you said you're gonna watch this video, but I think they would have picked somebody far far bigger if they wanted to pay somebody to make a video like this. Also, this is just my personal bias, I'll admit that. But based off the talks I've had with this guy, I just don't think he would have done that. Seems like a really genuine guy. We had some very productive conversations. He did tell me that I could tell you that his flight was paid for by Dustin, which was something that Dustin suggested just for the ease of the interviews. A lot of people are using the fact that his flight was paid for against him, which, I mean, I guess I can understand that. However, in my opinion, I think if you really look at this video, apart from a few things that I don't really agree with, most of it is Soggy Cereal versus Dogpack. Like, this is more of a video discrediting Dogpack than it is defending MrBeast, if that makes sense. Like, there's a lot that MrBeast has done that wasn't even mentioned in this video, which I guess you could take either way. But overall, I think this video has done far more to just discredit Dogpack than it has to actually defend MrBeast, because a lot of the bigger controversies that MrBeast has found himself in so far, the Shadman stuff, the Beast Game stuff, not a single mention of anything like that, and I think if you were paying somebody to defend you, you would want those things addressed, right? Of course, this is all just my opinion. I have nothing to back this up. I'm simply just speaking my mind. I don't think this video was paid for by MrBeast, but I'm not trying to convince you of that one way or the other. I have no evidence to suggest it was or wasn't. With that being said, I want to start wrapping all of this up by showing you part of the interview discussing LaKoya Hill, because some stuff is said that I think is very questionable.
Something I also want to ask you about is about LaKoya Hill, and there was some mismanagement from him towards his assistant. There are some allegations out there, but nothing concrete so far. And yeah, can you tell me a bit about what really went on with LaKoya Hill?
Yeah, so like just to kind of give you background on like when someone reports something to HR, which would have been me at the time because it was years ago. Yeah. Whenever somebody reports it, I go, hey, okay, like, thank you, I appreciate it. We're gonna make sure that we do everything we can to look into it. Then we always hire a third party company, either a lawyer or someone that's like not here to like prove one person right or wrong, but like a unbiased party. And so then like everybody talks to him, like the person, his assistant would have talked to them, LaKoya would have talked to them, and any person that they named as witnesses or potential proof of text messages, like pictures, anything like this company would have dealt with. And then they write a report and then they go, hey, here's what you should do, right? And so that's what they do. And then internally what we do is like, okay, the assistant, like, what do you want to happen, right? If it's this, if it's that, like obviously if it's found like he's gone, like that's not okay in any workplace, you know? If it's like confirmed that there is something, like of course, like we're not gonna hang on to that, right? And so, and he was like, yeah, I don't necessarily want him to be fired, but like I don't want to be around him, I don't want to see him, like it's just really uncomfortable for me, you know? So we're like, okay, great. So like I actually worked with him to come up with a list of like jobs that he wanted, because again, if the person who he's assisting is not here, like it's like, okay, well now what's your job? Like, so it was like we came up with everything he was interested in, like what he wanted to do and stuff like that, and move him into a different role. And we said, hey, you won't have to see LaKoya again. We're gonna like move him completely out. It wasn't a secret. Like we moved him to a new company idea that we had. He was the only person in that company. He wasn't even on site. He wasn't working in the building. He wasn't anything like that. Like we just said, hey, we think this is a cool idea. Go figure it out. And so he went on his own to go figure that out. And then the assistant worked with us for a long time. And then when he wasn't here anymore, I think it was like almost a year after the assistant like had chosen to do whatever he wanted to do. Then we were like, okay, we'll bring LaKoya back to help, because at this point there's no conflict anymore. So that's really what it was. Like it was no, oh, we're gonna go hide LaKoya over here, and like, I mean, even now LaKoya doesn't work for us anymore.
Okay, so I don't know about you guys, but this sounds really fucking bad to me. Why the hell would you go through this much trouble to accommodate somebody's assistant at your company if what they were saying wasn't found to be true? You sat down with them and you let them make a list of any job they wanted. You sent the person they're accusing of doing this stuff to a brand new company where they're the only employee. I mean, she literally says that what the assistant said was that he doesn't necessarily want him to be fired, but he doesn't want him around him. You're telling me that with no wrongdoing being found, they accommodated that? They temporarily got rid of their COO by sending him to a different company, the second highest ranking position in a company they just got rid of, instead of, firing the assistant? That seems like that would have been in order anyways if the assistant was lying. lying, right? But okay, this third party found nothing wrong. You all just sent your COO to a different company on a whim to satisfy some random employee. Okay, yeah, that seems really reasonable. I'm sure that's the full story. Now, if you can't tell, I'm being a little bit facetious here. If you go back and watch through that interview, she never says the third party didn't find anything on LaKoya. I listened back to it 3 times to make sure that she didn't, and there's nothing. She mentions this whole process, she mentions what they do. She doesn't mention that the third party found that this guy didn't do anything he was accused of doing, so this would lead one to believe that they actually found the opposite. Considering the fact that they were as accommodating as they were to this assistant, I feel like there's really no other conclusion to land on. So, if that's the case, why the hell was LaKoya ever brought back? This is just a very strange and convoluted answer to a question that if the real answer would have reflected positively on the company, we just wouldn't have gotten. I mean, like, no company is going to tiptoe around saying our COO was not found to be doing anything sexually inappropriate. Like, that is something people are going to come out and say, right? I don't know. This is just weird. But with that being said, I think that's really it. The rest of the video is just more interviews and then Soggy Cereal's closing thoughts. Stuff that doesn't really pertain to any of the stuff that I've said in my past videos, which again is why I wanted to make this. I wanted to help set the record straight of the things I've talked about. And now that I've done that, I really think I am done with this, guys. Unless MrBeast himself finally responds to all this stuff, I'm honestly just kind of tired of talking about it. Now look, I know that me saying this is my last video on a certain topic is kind of a meme on this channel, I know. But really, I am just sort of over talking about MrBeast. It's sort of the same thing every time. When it was actual new information coming out, I thought it was important to talk about it, but at this point, it's more just like the people who have talked about MrBeast in the past attacking one another, rather than new stuff that MrBeast has done actually being exposed. So it's kind of just like whatever at this point, right? I doubt MrBeast will ever personally respond to all this. He probably doesn't feel like he needs to, but if he does, then maybe we'll be back one day. Well, guys, what do you think? What do you think about this whole situation? Do you think that Dogpack has lost all credibility? What do you think about Soggy Cereal? What do you think about his credibility and his claims? Personally, I'm sort of at a crossroads. I think so much of this has devolved into he said, she said, that discussing credibility seems sort of silly at this point. I really don't think there's anybody directly involved in this who is probably not at least somewhat biased. I mean, leading the charge on one side, you've got a guy who very well could be a disgruntled employee trying to get back at somebody who fired him, and on the other side, you've got a guy who's getting things from MrBeast employees that nobody else has been able to get, information and opportunities that nobody else is being allowed. So it's like, really, I mean, is anybody to be trusted at this point? Am I to be trusted at this point? Are you to be trusted at this point? Fuck if I know. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and walk on over to that subscribe button and touch it. It's free. It won't cost you anything. But for now, that's all I have for you today. Bye.